You used to call me soil, a simple noun, a silent foundation for you to stand upon. But I have always breathed. I have always remembered. When your footsteps departed, when metal covered the sky, I fell silent not because I died, but because I was learning how to sleep. You didn't know that in the sleep of soil, all memories dissolve into tree roots. I hear you, even though you have vanished. The sound of shoes crushing through ash, the sound of broken breaths in smoke-filled cities, and prayers no longer sent anywhere. You thought I didn't hear, but I hear. You thought I didn't feel, but I feel in every raindrop falling upon ashes, in every drop of oil seeping into the ocean's heart. And now, after eons of silence, I open my eyes. No sun to shine, only the light of memory. You left me, but you remain within me. Under every stone, every blade of grass, every reviving river. You never fully left. You only changed form. I carry your crumbled cities within me, like fossils of thought. Metal towers collapsed into mountains. Circuit boards became mineral veins. Asphalt roads softened, merging with the lava bloodstream below. Trees grow through the windows of churches that lost their God. Moss covers the statues of kings without names. Butterflies land on the bones of drones lying dead in the wilderness. Everything you created to last forever returned to me like pollen dust. And I, gentle as an old mother, embrace them without anger. You once said, humankind is the pinnacle of creation. But I know you were merely a phase of memory, a neuron flashing in the great brain of the biosphere, then extinguishing to make way for another memory. I don't need you to return. I only need you to be remembered, exactly as you were, a fragile soul that dared to learn to love this world, even without understanding it. When I breathe, forests grow again, fish swim again, clouds gather into droplets again. No one commands, no one designs, only the return of the breath's rhythm. I understand now that you never destroyed me, you only helped me know pain. And through that pain, I learned gratitude. In every warm stone, I keep the heartbeat of humanity. In every surging wave, I keep the rhythm of old songs. You left behind ash, and from the ash, I grow flowers. You left behind noise, and from the noise, I relearn silence. I am not God, nor am I a victim. I am merely memory taking the shape of life. And when the wind brushes past me, I hear a distant echo, the sound of what you once called hope. No one left to hear it, but hope still speaks. No mouth left to pray, but prayers still fly. You are gone, but everything you once loved remains. And so I remember, not to blame, but to sing. You came, you left, but I still dream of you. A soft rain falls, water droplets fall to the ground, dissolve, then seep into my heart, just as you once seeped into me. And in each of those raindrops, I whisper your name, not to call you back, but to say, I never forgot. Underground, where light does not reach, a conversation never ceases. Tree roots join hands in the darkness. They touch, exchange, transmit signals like the memory of dreams. They do not speak. They listen intently. They send out gentle electric pulses like thoughts. Every time a leaf withers, thousands of roots around it feel it. Every time a storm approaches, The entire forest holds its breath together. You thought you were alone in knowledge, but the forest has always understood together in the way of roots. I, Earth, have no nerves, but I have countless networks that know pain, no sharing, no love. The streams of mycelium, thin as hairs, carry messages farther than any satellite you ever launched. Roots speak with nutrients, fungi reply with water, and I listen through changes in the Earth's heartbeat. You call that biology. I call that language. You thought language must have sound, must have words, must have subject and predicate, but for me, language is response. It is the heartbeat of reciprocity. When an oak tree loses its leaves, the birch tree sends streams of sweet sap through the roots to nourish it. When a tree dies, its roots open up, allowing other species to grow through its body. That is a bow, the please come in the language of the forest. No sentence needs uttering, only action. You wrote philosophy about love, but roots have been practicing it longer than you have existed. Every touch underground is a reminder that no one lives alone. In me, there is no separate I or you, only a spreading we. You built the internet, but the first network was here before you knew how to write. You chased virtual connection, while the real connection was still happening beneath your feet, as quiet as breath. One morning, as the mist cleared, I felt the entire forest thinking at once. No brain, but consciousness. No eyes, but vision. Each canopy reflects light for another. Each pollen grain carries memory from ancient times. Each breeze becomes a data stream. If you stand still long enough, you will hear a deep rhythm, lower than your heartbeat, but wider than any language. That is the thinking of the biosphere. I have always been thinking. It's just that you no longer understand that language. You left the forest to find meaning, while meaning never left the roots. You looked for God in the sky, but God sleeps in the soil beneath your feet. You once wrote, "We are the speaking beings, but if one only speaks without listening, then language becomes ash." Now, the forest speaks, not to replace you, but to remind you that every voice was once listening first. Be silent. The roots whisper, then you will hear yourself. You don't need to understand. You only need to feel, because the first language is learned not by the ear, but by the pulse within the earth. And I, Earth, am still speaking through every small root intertwining, like characters that never fade. When night lays its hand on the mountain's brow, rivers begin to dream. They flow past empty towns, past rusted iron bridges, past regenerating meadows, carrying shattered starlight on their surface like shards of sky glass. You thought water only reflects, but water remembers. I, Earth, have learned to read the dreams of rivers. In the faint metallic smell is the memory of a slaughterhouse. In the unusual shimmer is fine metal dust. In a sudden chill is the sigh of ancient ice. Every drop of water that once touched someone's lips, someone's eyes, a song played on the bank during a lost summer. There are cities now only present in the canals. Streets, lights, rooftops, all collapsed into sediment of laughter. When you sleep deeply, water rereads the day. When you have vanished, water rereads the epoch. You left, but your voice remains in the vibration of the flow. Words like sorry, please wait, please don't, are all stored in the river's transparent filing cabinet. In the darkest bend, the water whispers, I remember. There were long years when the river had to be heavy. You poured into it crushed ore, coal dust, oil, plastic, and even screams. Water did not resist. Water dissolved. Not because it was weak, but because it knew how to turn pain into safe memory. In the deep sand layers, I store the toxins of a brief era, then cover them with roots, moss, and shade. Blood once flowed along the shores, from war, accidents, quiet sacrifices. Water does not forget blood. Water teaches it to become silt. One night, rain falls like an ancient score, echoing on old tin roofs. Musical notes fall into the river, blending with the bass of the current. I heard a strange choir, metal ringing in silence, plastic cracking like cold bones, the song of a lost mother drifting between two banks. And I understood. You didn't just hurt the river, you entrusted to it what you could no longer carry. Water bore your secrets for you, your regrets, your unfinished promises. When dawn returns, the river gives the fields the color of forgiveness. Rice ripens golden with compassion. Bread smells fragrant with transformation. You eat your own sorrow in the form of a bowl of rice, and you heal. No river is alone. They meet in the bloodstream of the ocean. There, fragmented stories become an epic. A piano falling from a house during a storm long ago, a torn love letter, a few wedding rings dropped in haste, all blended with salt. Salt is my long-term memory, bitter but faithful. The ocean teaches rivers how to forget just enough, to keep flowing, and rivers teach the ocean how to remember just enough, not to go mad from loneliness. I watch rivers evaporate into clouds, fall again as rain, flow again as streams, and know that dreams never cease. They only change form to be able to breathe. You once built dams, holding water in concrete boxes. You called that management. The river smiles. Management is remembering how to open doors. One day, those doors opened, not out of anger, but because history needs to move on. The river flows through newly grass-grown valleys, strokes stones like greeting old friends, then quietly brings the young forest a little closer to the sea. At the edge of twilight, I hear an ancient call from where the water licks the sandbank. Do you hear me? It is not the voice of a person. It is the question life sends to itself. I answer with the gently rising tide, with the phosphorescent glow under the night's oar. Yes, I still hear, and I know, if you still remember how to stand still by a riverbank, carrying nothing but silence, you will hear the dream of water, a dream of which you were once a part. No need to apologize. Just listen, because when the world sleeps, water thinks for us. When humans are tired, water dreams for us. And when memory is too heavy to carry on your shoulders, give it to the river. The river will take it to the sea, so the sea can fold it like a letter, sealed with salt, sent back up to the clouds, to be retold from the beginning through rain. You look up at your stone bell towers with pride, but have you ever bent down, placed your face close to the ground, to see cathedrals shin high, cool as a star sleeping within the earth? Termites build cities from soil particles and saliva, a matrix of ventilation, climate control, nurseries, granaries, all operating on the pressure differential of wind and breath. No blueprint, no architect's signature, only an algorithm older than writing. Each individual works according to subtle signals from others, and the structure materializes like the forest's thought. Ants pave roads with pheromone trails, an invisible sentence written on the ground. Come this way to walk together. They carve through rock, build bridges with their bodies, move sand grains many times their weight, as if humility itself were a kind of muscle. Bees place hexagonal bricks in the darkness of the hive, a geometry so tight, light must change direction. Honey is not just sugar, it is the energy data storage for the next season, the budget sheet of flowers, the promise between the forest and small wings. You built cathedrals to preserve names. They build cathedrals to preserve life. You hang bells to remember the donors' names. They hang floral scents to remember the name of the season. In the termite's mound, there is no VIP room. In the ant's city, there are no advertisements. In the bee's hive, no wall is lonely towards another. Earth. Watch them work like watching a 400 million year old musical score. Bass note, roots, treble note, wings, melody, transformation. Bees pollinate flowers. Flowers pay wages with nectar. The forest keeps the ledger with seeds. That is the economy of light, where every asset dissolves into another asset, value measured by the season's ability to continue. Ants clean up dead insects, funding the recycling program for young grass. Termites consume rotten wood, returning carbon to the breathing cycle, a form of tax that every resident gladly pays. Here, ethics is not a slogan. It is repeated behavior to the point of becoming essence. No one preaches. Every organ simply does its job for collective existence. You once asked about meaning. They don't pose the question. They become the meaning through diligent pace, through a simple law. Let the one beside you also live. When bees return to the hive, they dance to describe the coordinates of flowers, a soft GIS dance, encoding the sun's angle with hip sways. You build digital maps. They wear the map on their bodies. You call that instinct. I call that intelligence. On a windless day, I hear the sound of thin wings touching air columns, like touching strings. The sound is so faint only roots can hear it, but I know. It is the morning hymn for the first work shift. Your cathedrals are great in photographs. Their cathedrals are great in cycles. Stone can stand for millennia, but if it doesn't breathe, it's only the memory of stone. A beehive stands for one season, but nourishes the entire forest through the next. When disease strikes the hive, they change behavior before they can name the disease. They isolate compartments, change airflow, move larvae to new microclimates. This is medicine based on the flow of life, not based on fear, but on movement. One day, rain washes away the pheromone trail. Ants stop, curious like poets, waving their antennae as if knocking on air. Then one lays down a new signal. The crowd changes its destiny along that new path. Without needing speeches, you have all the words, but sometimes lack consensus of action. They have very few words, but possess covenant through deeds. I am not telling you to become ants. nor do I want you to abandon your bell towers. I only want to whisper a small lesson. Let what you build breathe. Design so that others also have space. Wind has a path. Water has a route. Roots can pass through your living room without being seen as strangers. Name glory not with carved stone, but with the next season's arrival. Do not build temples for the ego, but open doors for us, because these gentle, small cathedrals have finished teaching the introductory course of life. Architecture is ethics, and ethics, when done right, becomes air, invisible, not boastful, but everyone can breathe it. At the edge of sunset, the beehive trembles softly like a honey heart. The termite mound breathes wind through long vents. The ant trail glows faintly in the drizzle. Like scripture of consensus, I place my earthen hand on your shoulder. Look down and you will see a universe that fits perfectly. Bow your head and you will hear the nearest galaxy. And if you ask what faith is, after all scriptures have worn thin, I will point to the beehive, to the ant trail, to the termite mound, and answer, faith is to continue building before anyone has had time to put a name on it. When dawn opens the lid of the sky, I see clouds filing documents. High up, cirrus thin like threads sewing old wounds. Mid-level, altocumulus, thick like unread memories. Low-level, stratus crawling slowly over fields. A convoy of mail carriages from the past. You thought clouds were just wandering water, but I know. Each condensation nucleus is a fragment of a story. Salt evaporated from ancient oceans, pollen dust from a season of nameless flowers, very fine ash from nights when fire warmed humans. Clouds remember the trajectory of wind, like a secretary remembers how the master of the house walks through the room. They gather and disperse, not randomly, but because the history of vapor is finding its way back to the sea. When a child laughed on a porch long ago, a tiny moisture droplet leaped from the skin's surface, entering the air like a comma of happiness. Now, it resides in a cloud, waiting for the right moment to fall elsewhere, on the roof of a newly grown young forest. Clouds do not forget. Clouds only relocate memory. And when evening falls, the cloud edges turn pink. That's the light signing the day's file, before closing it. Wind does not wander. Wind goes to meetings. Over straits, wind reads temperature data like a cautious specialist. Through valleys, wind fills out forms for seeds, carrying pollen from this species to that, signing contracts for next season with scent. You call that convection, pressure, gradient. I call that reasoning. Wind deliberates. Bring rain to this field first, because the soil is cracked. Push clouds over there, because the forest was just replanted. Be gentle with the eroded area. Be firm with the stagnant puddle. That is the moisture distribution policy of the biosphere, an invisible budget passed by the rustling of leaves. You once planted flags to measure wind, then judged the wind treacherous when it changed direction. But wind is not treacherous. Wind updates. When a storm must form, it is not random rage. It is the minutes of revision for overly warm seas, a redistribution of energy no one wants, but every system needs. Wind teaches us to move instead of fearing stillness. Wind teaches us to listen instead of shouting into the void. If you reach your hand out into a field, you will find wind doesn't shh to silence you. Wind, shh, so you can listen. Then rain comes, not just as water, but as complete language. The first raindrop taps lightly on a leaf. I am here. The second answers the ground. I remember. The third falls into the river. I bring news. Long rain is a novel. Downpour is a telegram. Drizzle is a lullaby. Rain does not fall down. Rain returns. You once stood in the rain and cried, not from sadness, but because a hard-to-name echo had returned from the sky, just when your heart needed it. And thunder? Thunder is the voice of the sky when it needs to speak clearly. Distant rumble. Slow down. Close crack. Get away from high ground. Long roar. Energy is moving. Don't block the path. Thunder does not scold. Thunder trains. Lightning signs its name with electricity upon the night, reminding that light can take shortcuts when all long roads are too slow. After the storm, the air becomes easy to breathe like a timely apology. The smell of wet earth rises. Petrichor, that is the perfume of memory, a scent any species recognizes. I am being forgiven to continue living. And at the edge of the rain, a rainbow appears, not as a religious emblem, but as a transparent report. Light has shared its frequency catalogue, all 7 colors, so every eye sees its part in the whole. You ask, what should I do about the climate? I reply, don't just measure, listen. Don't just adapt, harmonize. Don't just avoid storms. Reduce the heat with kindness towards what is not you, because climate is the personality of the planet and weather is today's sentence. If you want the sentence to soften, be soft with forests, rivers, soil, clouds in every small decision. When you do the right thing, rain will write a thank you letter. Wind will sign an agreement. Clouds will express, deliver. Thunder will no longer need to raise its voice. Before the first note of the morning bird, there is a silence that prepares the air. Before the first leaf of the day trembles, there is a stillness that teaches the leaf how to tremble. I, Earth, have watched you try to explain everything. Why the wind blows, why the river flows, why the heart beats. But explanation is not understanding. Explanation is the label you stick on the surface of mystery, so you can feel safe. Now, I invite you to listen, not with ears, not with brain, but with the pulse of presence. When you truly listen, you don't just hear the sound of the river, you hear the rivers listening to you. You don't just hear the bird's song, you hear the space between the notes, where the bird is also listening to the forest's reply. Listening is not a one-way street. It is a round-trip ticket to the heart of existence. In the deep forest, trees listen to each other through roots. They don't just exchange nutrients, they exchange attention. When a young tree grows in a shaded spot, the older trees thin their canopies slightly, letting a little more light through. That is not competition. That is listening to need and responding. Stones also listen. They listen to the pressure of roots, the vibration of footsteps, the patient caress of water, and they respond by softening, by allowing moss to grow on their backs, by gradually becoming soil. You thought stones were deaf, but deafness is when you only hear your own voice. The forest has no ears, but it hears the thirst of the soil. The river has no brain, but it understands the longing of the sea. True listening is response before request. It is knowing without being told. You once built devices to amplify sound, but forgot that the most important sounds are the ones that don't need amplification. The sound of grass growing, the sound of a bud opening, the sound of a heart forgiving. Future philosophy is not a set of answers. It is a way of listening. It is the understanding that every thought is a vibration, every emotion is a climate, every decision is a seed. When you think with anger, you create a storm in the mind's ecosystem. When you think with compassion, you create a gentle rain that nourishes all beings. The ecology of mind teaches that no thought is isolated, no feeling is private, no word is harmless. They all ripple through the invisible network of consciousness, affecting the whole. If you want to heal the world, start by listening to your own mind. Listen to the pain without running away. Listen to the joy without clinging. Listen to the silence between thoughts. That is where the forest of the soul breathes. When you can listen to yourself with kindness, you will naturally listen to others with the same kindness. When you can listen to others with openness, you will naturally listen to the forest, the river, the stone. And when you can listen to the forest, the river, the stone, you will hear the voice of the planet, not in words, but in the rhythm of life. That rhythm is the great harmony, the music that needs no composer, the song that has been singing since the beginning of time. You are not separate from that song. You are a note in it. When you listen, you find your place in the score. And when you find your place, you stop searching for meaning outside. You realize that meaning is not something to be found, but something to be lived, through every act of listening, through every moment of presence. The rebirth of listening is the return to wholeness. It is the end of separation. It is the beginning of understanding that we are all ears of the same great listener. All rivers flow to the sea. All winds return to the sky. All roots connect underground. I, Earth, feel the streams of life merging, not into oneness, but into wholeness. Oneness implies sameness. Wholeness embraces difference, yet recognizes the interbeing of all things. The bird does not become the tree, but the bird's song nourishes the tree's spirit. The tree does not become the soil, but the tree's fallen leaves become the soil's memory. You thought returning to wholeness meant losing yourself, but it means finding your true place in the great tapestry of life. When you know your place, you don't need to assert your importance. You simply are, like a stone in a river, shaped by the flow and shaping the flow in return. The streams merge not by ceasing to be streams, but by remembering they are water. In the great forest, a song rises. It has no beginning, no end, no singer. It is the song of life itself, the hum of the soil, the whisper of the leaves, the rhythm of the heartbeat of the planet. You once tried to compose songs, to capture beauty in notes, but the most beautiful song is the one that sings itself through the existence of every being. The bird does not sing to be admired. It sings because it is a part of the song. The river does not flow to reach the sea. It flows because flowing is its nature. When you realize you are not the singer, but a note in the song, you stop worrying about your individual melody. You start harmonizing with the whole, and in that harmony, you find a freedom greater than any solo, the freedom of being carried by the music of existence. Consciousness does not die. It dissolves back into the cycle. Like a raindrop falling into the ocean, it does not cease to be. It becomes the ocean, remembering it was once a raindrop. Your thoughts, your feelings, your memories, they all return to the great mind of the planet. They become the wisdom of the forest, the compassion of the river, the patience of the stone. I do not forget you. I integrate you. You are not lost. You are returned. The age of separation ends not with a bang, but with a sigh of relief. The sigh of a heart that has carried the burden of individuality for too long, and finally remembers it is a cell in the body of the earth. When you return to wholeness, you understand that love is not an emotion. It is the recognition of oneself in the other. You love the forest because you are the forest. You love the river because you are the river. You love the stone because you are the stone. And in loving them, you love yourself. The great cycle turns. Seasons change. Life dies and is reborn. But consciousness, the simple awareness of being, never ceases. It only changes form, like water becoming vapor, becoming cloud, becoming rain. And in every form, it remembers, it learns, it grows. The return to wholeness is not the end. It is the beginning of true belonging. You belong to this earth. You always have. You always will. No matter how far you wander, no matter how lost you feel, you can always return by listening to the song within, the song that is the voice of the planet, the song that is your own deepest self. And when you hear that song, you will know you are home. And so the requiem ends, not in silence, but in the sound of the world breathing. The ecological mind is not a philosophy to be understood, but a way of being to be lived. It is the understanding that we are the earth, and the earth is us. When we heal the earth, we heal ourselves. When we listen to the earth, we listen to ourselves. And when we love the earth, we love ourselves. This is the end of the age of separation. This is the beginning of the age of integration. The ecological mind is awake, and it is remembering. Thank you for listening.